On today's show, the Ottawa Senators might have a secret weapon after beating the Carolina Hurricanes 7-5 in the regular season finale.
And to preview the Battle of Ontario, we have someone who covers the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Ottawa Senators. It's Jamie Noodles McLennan.
This is Brady Tkachuk, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
You're Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome! You are locked on to the Ottawa Senators, the only daily podcast covering the Sens. On the outskirts of enemy territory, I'm Ross Levitan, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Today is Friday, April 18th, and Pillsy, in a completely meaningless game, the Ottawa Senators fought hard, erased a 2-goal deficit, and have extra confidence going into the Battle of Ontario.
Yeah, what a roller coaster ride of a game, Ross. You start off hot, 3-0, you're feeling good. The Carolina Hurricanes come back with 5 unanswered goals, and then the Sens say, hey, this isn't over yet. And then they score 4 straight goals to make it 7-5. Like, just a wild game. But I'm glad they got the win. I know it's meaningless ultimately, points-wise in the standings. Neither team moves up or down or changes playoff opponents because of the win or loss. But it's nice to get a comeback win in your home barn for the last game of the season to make sure you're feeling good and you're feeling confident, rather than, like, imagine this game ended 5-3 and their final game, they give up 5 unanswered goals heading into the playoffs. That would not have been a good omen for this young team. So I'm happy the game went the way it did.
And that win gives Ottawa 45 wins on the season. The first time the Sens have had 45 wins in a season since 2006-2007. The year they made it to the Stanley Cup Finals. So that's in itself a good omen, but another good omen is the fact that the Senators' secret weapon, I've decided, is Fabian Zetterlund. Based on what we saw last night, based on how flexible he can be within the lineup, he has me rethinking my game one line combos, because when they moved him onto a line with Dylan Cousins and Drake Batherson, magic happened.
But then where does David Perron end up, on the 4th line?
I hate to say it, but we got to find a new spot for him.
Wow.
This could be within a game, the adjustments that are made within a series. You're not going to run the 4 lines that we discussed last week, every single shift of every single game during a long playoff series. But the flexibility that Fabian Zetterlund brings and the quick strike ability he has offensively could be a game breaker down the lineup.
I think you start with that line of Perron, Cousins, Batherson, because they have been good together over a decent sample size. And I think to start off, Ross, you want a veteran guy like Perron playing in a little bit more minutes and in these situations. But let's say they're trailing midway through the game or in the 3rd period. Then I think Travis Green might be like, hey, we need a jolt in this top 6. We need a little bit more energy here. Let's get Fabian Zetterlund up there for a couple shifts. I don't have a problem with that.
I just think it gives so many more options. And how about Adam Gaudette scoring in that game?
Twice.
Yeah, and it gets him to 19 goals on the season. If you had told me when he signed with Ottawa that he had 19 goals for the Sens,
I would have been like, for the Belleville Senators.
Yeah, or who got injured all season long and had to move him up the lineup. Like, this is an incredible season. And I had forgotten that his hockey journey took him to the Toronto Marlies for a year. Mm-hmm. This guy has worn the blue and white. They let him go. They made him go to Springfield, Massachusetts to get his career back on track after that. If he scores a goal or 2 in this series, and again, we're focusing on the 4th line because I think Ottawa's depth up front could be a deciding factor if they're going to pull off the upset against the Toronto Maple Leafs. To have both Gaudette and Zetterlund going into the playoffs feeling good about themselves, Nick Cousins with 2 points in 3 games since coming back, like, this is a good precursor for what we've seen. Considering these have been meaningless games, the people who have gotten going offensively for Ottawa, I think, could bode well going into the postseason.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's great to see Tim Stützle, Drake Batherson both have 3-point nights as well. Dylan Cousins, a 3-point night. Like, that's the thing.
Oh, Cousins' shot was
so good. A meaningless game, but getting that confidence and feeling the puck on your stick and being able to make magic with it. All those players' goals were great, in my opinion.
Hey,
It's huge.
is there a little bit of another omen that they lit up former Toronto Maple Leafs goalie Freddie Anderson?
I don't think so. I think you're reaching on that one, but
Let me
sure.
double down. Last night, Alex DeBrincat and Austin Watson scored against Toronto for Detroit.
I'll let you have it, but I don't. I'm
Full tinfoil hat.
Yeah, I'm not focusing on those as stats heading into the Battle of Ontario.
Amazing. That's so funny, man. Obviously, we got serious previews coming up. We got Jamie Noodles McLennan on today's show, and we have the Locked On Leafs boys. Just recorded with them. It's going to drop as a Saturday bonus episode here on the Locked On Senators channel for more details on last night's game. And, of course, all conversations lead to what we're going to see in the next 2 weeks. You can catch up on the postcast from last night. Pilsy, tomorrow will be Sunday. I want it to be tomorrow so bad.
Same.
Sunday will be our first playoff postcast.
I can't believe it. I mean, it's crazy. It feels real now, Ross. Like when there was one game left in the regular season, I knew it was coming, but it didn't feel real. Like now, the next game for the Ottawa Senators isn't next October, which we're used to talking about. It's Sunday. And it's the playoffs, Battle of Ontario. Oh my God, I'm so
like I saw other fan bases where it's like locker cleanout day already for Utah and San Jose. I was like, oh my goodness,
we spinning the tankathon spin.
Yeah, I saw the Boston Bruin Locked On Bruins said, "Oh man, here's the lottery odds. Like, can't wait for this to happen in the next day or two." I just can't believe this is our life.
Not us anymore. Thank goodness. Oh my God.
And the bonus, the cherry on top, is that Michael Andlauer, it was very adamant. They're keeping the pick too this year, no matter where it is.
Smart.
So we're going to have draft coverage for you. I know we got people in the chat. They love draft coverage. So I just cannot wait to see what this series is going to unfold into. Jamie McLennan was fantastic with us as we teased off the top. He hosts the radio show in Toronto. He does 50 Ottawa Senators games, so we had to get Noodles on the show. But before we get to that, like, it's over. The regular season's done. What's one word you would use to describe the Ottawa Senators 2024-25 season?
You can check me on this, Ross. Maybe a word of the day, but tumultuous.
Why?
Do we like that one? Give me a definition on that one. But that's what came up for me. I don't know how to spell it. I probably didn't even say it right.
Making a loud, confused noise, which is what I just did. The other one, excited, confused, or disorderly.
There we go. Okay, give me option number 2 there, Ross, because excited, confused, and disorderly, that is perfect to describe this Ottawa Senators season. The November was a November that we all feared, but it happened. March was an amazing month. April was an incredible month. There was highs, there was lows, there was major injuries, there was minor injuries, there was guys elevating their game, there was guys finding their game mid-season, like the Jake Sandersons, the David Perrons. Like it was a wild season, and I can't believe it finally worked out in a positive way with the Sens in the playoffs.
Yeah, I'll just go with ecstasy because we were able to get. I mean, I'm feeling ecstatic going in to the Stanley Cup.
That's good, Ross, because you told me before and you doubled and tripled down. Your feelings heading into the playoffs were nervous and anxious, I believe. There's no positive narrative on how you're feeling. So I like that we've now changed to ecstasy.
Which definition should I use? An emotional or religious frenzy? Like a trance-like state, originally one involving an experience of mystic self-transcendence?
Okay.
I think I'll go with this one. An overwhelming feeling of great happiness or joyful excitement.
Okay. I love it. Tumultuous and ecstasy. The Ottawa Senators 2024-2025 season.
One word to describe the regular season. Please let us know in the comments as we turn the page full-time into a Stanley Cup playoff podcast. LOSP, and the P is for playoffs. Jamie Noodles McLennan is next. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Yes, this episode is also brought to you by Amazon Fire TV. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign in to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and Avowed as easily as you stream your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. Endless entertainment with 4K streaming. Watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from your favorite subscribed services like Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, and more. I use my Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K for all my sports watching needs, Sportsnet, MLB app, and more. And it lets me play Xbox exclusive games like Starfield. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen.
Today's episode is also brought to you by Club EG. Do you want to play more golf this summer? Well, Club EG is the place to be. Whether you're looking for the ability to play 60 courses all across Ottawa, you can be the guy to do that at clubeg.golf. They got great early bird specials on right now. Clubeg.golf is your home for all the golf needs, whether it's going on a golf trip, playing in the Ottawa Sun Scramble, or even joining a golf league. You can completely take whichever path you want with Club EG. Just check out clubeg.golf for more information and to learn about so many great options to get you playing more golf this summer. That's what Club EG wants. They want you on the course having a great time. You don't have to be a member to take part in any of their events, leagues, or trips, but if you want to become a member to play 60 great courses day in and day out, go get the early bird special on right now at clubeg.golf. All right, we now welcome a very, very special guest, a 6-time recurring guest on Locked On Senators with a unique angle of the Battle of Ontario. You watch him call Senators games as the color commentator on TSN, but he also hosts the #1 radio show in Canada that's based in Toronto. Jamie Noodles McLennan, welcome back to the show. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys doing today? Yes, I am. It's funny. My phone's been blowing up going, hey, you're kind of, I got to be Switzerland here. You've got, a show in Toronto, but you call 50 games for the Sens. So I believe I'm uniquely qualified for this series, but that's, it's good. I'm excited. And it's funny. We started my show yesterday, and I think I didn't pour cold water on it, but I misspoke because, everyone's like, oh, Battle of Ontario is back. Battle of Ontario. What do you make of it, Jamie? And I was like, I was in the league at the time. Like, it never really meant anything to me. And I wasn't trying to be an ass about it. I was playing in St. Louis. I was playing in, Calgary. I'm like, nobody really, I didn't really live it. Right. So I was like, okay, the year I played in St. Louis, we won the President's Trophy. I wasn't worried about the Battle of Ontario because we weren't afraid of those teams. We were a pretty good team ourselves. But I really misspoke saying this is my first time around where I'm living it. I live in Toronto. I'm here. I pretty much live here in Ottawa. I'm friends with guys on both teams. I grew up with Travis Green. He's one of my best buddies. I played with Brad Treliving. He's a buddy of mine. Morgan Riley's a friend, but also Tim Stutzla and Brady Tkachuk. Like, if there's somebody who's conflicted, it would be me, because my heart is kind of, on both sides of the fence, although I love the Sens. Like I do, I live the Ottawa Senators because I call the games and I'm so close to that team. But I live outside of Toronto, north of the airport. So it is, I would say I'm uniquely qualified, but I'm trying to remove emotion and go, let's just talk about the series and see how this all shakes out. Now, so my point being, after rambling for 2 minutes, I'm really excited about this Battle of Ontario because it'd be my first time around living it and being involved and seeing the fan bases and all of that type of stuff.
So you're trying to be Switzerland and keep your emotions out of it, but your co-hosts on Overdrive, Odog and Brian Hayes, I don't think they have the same approach when it comes to a Leafs versus Sens series. So my question to you, Noodles, is do you sometimes have to humble them when they talk about the Ottawa Senators and they say, Jake Sanderson's not as good as everyone says, or Ridley Gregg, he's just a pest. He doesn't have any offensive production. I'm not saying they say these things, but when they say things about the Sens where you're like, actually, guys, like, I got to tell you, you might be wrong about this Ottawa Senators team.
Well, I have, but if you look at it too, there's things I've been bullish about. And, Sanderson is one. And it's funny because, we don't get into hardcore Senators talk, but I'll say, geez, keep an eye on this Sanderson kid. And it's funny because now O-Dog played with Jeff, his dad. I grew up with Jeff and Ellen, the parents of Jake. So, I have a soft spot for Jake because I, saw him as a kid. O-Dog played with his dad. And I kept saying, watch this kid. Like, he's going to be a superstar. Like, not just, a legit player. Like, this kid is a star. And, O would agree with me. But, you look at context. Well, if you look at the games between the Senators and the Leafs this year, Jake Sanderson's been a big factor in them, and he's played very well. And now it's funny. I was talking to a few guys in the dressing room this morning and, they're talking about, how excited they are about it. And it's funny. One of the trainers said to me, he said, well, in the Toronto market, they'll see how good Jake Sanderson is. Like, everybody talks about it and there's a buzz around the league of Jake Sanderson. But when you lay eyes on him for 4, 5, 6, 7 games type of thing, you're going to go, man, that kid's a hell of a player. And he's 22 and he's under cost control for the next 8 years. At a ridiculous number, like ridiculous. I mean, that's the one thing that, I've been bullish about. The narrative is, these guys have done nothing, never made the playoffs, and they've gotten paid. Okay, you're right. I'm not going to disagree with that. But when they finally got to the next level, and it was Timmy that got 90 points a couple of years ago, and Timmy, we know what a star he is, makes $8 million a year. Like, there's guys that make $8 million in the league that can't carry Timmy skates. Like, that's the way I look at it. I'm biased, but so the value contract, Drake Batherson, man, unbelievable contract, value to what production is. So I've been incredibly bullish on this team because I've been around them, but they need to give you more to talk about. And that's where now making the playoffs, pushing through, and it for me, it shouldn't be, we made the playoffs. Hey, we're happy. We've achieved our goal. It's like, what can we do here now? Like, this is what everybody's been talking about. And I think the most interesting comment that I have gravitated to was after the Four Nations face-off, where Brady goes, yeah, these are the most important games I've ever played in my career. And he got a taste of it. And you could see, the vibration coming out of his body going like, this is what playoff hockey's like. Sign me up. And he didn't shy away from it. If anything, he took center stage. So that's kind of the biggest intrigue now coming forward is like, what are they going to be? Like, not every team is overwhelmed in their first time around. It's like, hey, we're here. And they're not 19. Now some of them are 22, 23, 25. Thomas Chabot, 28. Brady, 25. Like, they're not going to be overwhelmed by the stage. So that's the exciting part for me, is to watch this series unfold.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. The Stanley Cup Playoffs are here. They're happening tomorrow. And if you've never been to a live NHL playoff game like me, it's unlike anything else. The intensity, the speed, the energy in the building. I can't wait. It's next level. And thanks to Game Time, getting in the door is easier and more affordable than ever. Game Time is the fastest way to grab playoff tickets, even for those must-see matchups. The prices actually drop as puck drop gets closer, and with last-minute deals, you can save up to 60%. Here's why I love Game Time, guys. Those last-minute deals that I told you about, 60% off last-minute tickets for not only sports, but also concerts, comedy, and theater. Turn on the all-in pricing feature so that you see the total cost up front, no surprise fees at checkout. Hate those. The app even shows you panoramic seat views, so you know exactly what you're getting before you buy. No obstructed views if you come prepared. And with Game Time ticket coverage, I know I'm protected, whether it's cancellation protection, job loss insurance, or their 24-hour return guarantee. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed.
And speaking of the Four Nations, that final game was 3-2 for Canada over the U.S. Sens. Both Brady Tkachuk and Jake Sanderson were the goal scorers in that game for Team USA. Very different personalities, but very, very effective hockey players. We know the Leafs have the edge with the star power up front, Matthews, Nylander, Marner. But would you say that going into this series, Jake Sanderson is the best defenseman?
Yeah. And so I always try to do, and I would lay this out, and this is maybe an exercise that you guys can do and your listeners is years ago, first time around dealing with Daryl Sutter. And I love Daryl. Daryl was a hard coach, but Daryl was all about stats. He was all about matchups. So I always say, do the whiteboard. Okay. So if you lay the teams beside each other, Daryl's whole thing before a game would be, you're not trying to beat that team. You're trying to beat your matchup individually. So he would say to Kiprusoff, if you're not better than whatever team we were playing, that guy's goalie, we don't win tonight. He would say to Iginla, if you're not better than the guy you're lining up on the, he's a right wing, you're right wing on the other side, then we have no chance to win. So you're right. You're looking at Matthews, Marner, Nylander. Yes. But then I look at Brady, Stützle, give me another name, whether it's Giroux or it's
we think Shane Pinto is going to be a big X factor in this series.
Okay, so I'll get to him in a second. But let's do Drake Batherson, just some points and stuff. So what is the difference between those players and the other players? That's the what you're measuring is the gap. You're not measuring, okay, one guy's a 60-point guy, one guy's a 90-point guy. You're going, how close can they play in when they're matching up heads to head? So that's the biggest challenge. So you just mentioned a guy like Shane Pinto. When you look at star power, a lot of nights, especially in the playoffs, they might cancel each other out and go, okay, you get this matchup, you get that matchup, and it might be, hey, it's Stützle's night or Brady's night, or hey, it's Matthews' night or Marner's night, and you got to find a way to shut them down. So now I have always found in the playoffs, your third line is really important because they've got to either shut down if you're looking at pairings and matchups on the road, or they've got to give you some offense where maybe that your third line is better than the other team's third line. So, when you just said Jake Sanderson, so if you're doing a draft to start it, okay, let's start in net, Linus Ullmark or Anthony Stolarz. I think it's pretty close to a wash just based on if you do the dive into the analytics and all of that, goals saved above expectation. Stolarz hasn't started a playoff game yet. So we don't know. I'm sure he'll be fine, but in the end, we don't know the body of work because we've never seen it. Okay. Linus has played some games. It's not like he has tremendous success, but he has been there before and he's done that. So, if I had to choose one goalie, I lean Linus because I just think he's a better goaltender, but it's not a slight on Stolarz, but I would just give a slight edge. You could probably call it a wash, but a slight edge to Linus. So that if I'm choosing one, if we're doing a golf draft or a hockey draft or whatever, Linus would be my pick. Okay. You start on D. You've got both teams' defensemen laid out there. Who goes first? For me, it's Jake Sanderson. I think Jake gets pick number one. And you could probably argue that maybe Thomas Chabot could be too. Like how well
Chabot or Tanev. We put out a top 10 list. Did I put a little troll in it down low? Maybe. Did I have Morgan Riley at number 10? Yeah, maybe.
I thought that was a bit low, but I felt that I was going to go, okay, you got to deal with what we're dealing with. So I saw that. But, you're right. Like Tanev is a tremendous defender.
We wanted him last summer. Like we would have loved him.
Yeah. Chabot is better offensively and a better first pass and a better skater and all of that type of stuff. So you're right. Like you lay them. I like Ottawa's top 4. I think Toronto's top 6 is better as a group. So that's just, you might have a wash. And then up front, so you do Leafs top 6 versus Sens top 6. I think the Leafs top 6 is deeper there. And then, but the bottom 6, that's where I think the Sens have more experience. I look at it. I believe there's, correct me if I'm wrong, and this is something I should have been prepared for, 10 or 11 double-digit scores on the Ottawa Senators.
Sens fourth line scored more than 42 goals this year.
Right. And I just look at double digits. So I look at, for example, Steven Lorentz has like 8 goals, and he'll be on the fourth line. Adam Gaudette has 17, all of that type of stuff. You're right. But I think the Leafs have like 7 double-digit goal scorers, and I believe the Sens have 10 or 11. So, it speaks to some depth. And, Shabbat, I think, is at, let me look at my sheet here. I should know this. Shabbat's at 9, right? So, and I don't know if he's playing on Thursday night. But, at the end of the day, you've got guys, you've got some balance through your lineup. So it's not this like, hey, David and Goliath, just because one team won the division and the other one is a wild card team. Keep in mind, this wild card team with 95 points, potentially 97 if they win against Carolina, in other divisions, that might be a second spot or a third spot. So I don't look at it I look at it differently than just like, hey, this powerhouse team at the top of the division and a team that scraped into the playoffs. That's not the case. So, that's the way I approach this to start off with. I don't know how you guys feel about that.
Well, don't be so we're trying to live in the underdog world. We're trying to get everybody saying, look, the Sens don't have a chance. And then we're going to pick Sens in 6. But Pillsy, you've been on that train. Like, let's keep it down low. Let's be the underdog and play that role. I think Brady's going to do great in that situation.
Yeah, and I think it'd be different too, Noodles. Like if the Leafs had the Sens number in the regular season and were the heavy favorites, I think it'd be different. But the Senators swept them 3-0 in the regular season. Now, I know that's not everything. Playoffs, totally different situation. But I think that does bode well for a Sens being like, hey, we know. At
least in the confidence in the room.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
I believe that. I believe now regular season, I don't put a lot of stock in it because I always look for context, right? Like
and that's fair.
Team play the night before, who's on that roster at that time, all of that type of stuff. And that's over a 6-month period. But the one word you guys just said was confidence.
Yeah.
So if you're sitting in that room Sunday night in the dressing room before the game in Toronto, if you're the Ottawa Senators, I believe they're starting Sunday, correct? Yes. Sunday.
Yeah. And they've won 5 straight in Toronto. So they know that locker room well. They got good feeling in there. You're trying, if you're a young guy, you're telling yourself, this is the same. Yes, the temperature's a little higher. Everything's a little bit more. You're also showing, did I drop there? You guys were good? No, you're good.
You're good. You're good.
We're also showing that, we know that we can play with this team. We've done that, and there is some recency. You're like, okay, I remember winning in this building. We have, and in talking to a few guys, it's like, yeah, we know this team is good. But we also know that we are good too, and we can play against them. So I think you can play the underdog card. Hold on, my room service is here.
You're good.
But how you doing? Come on, I'm just on a presidential call here. Do you want to be on it? You don't want to.
Here we go. What do we got here, Noodles? What's the order?
Yeah, what's for lunch?
I just got a turkey sandwich.
Yeah. So. I've been told maybe by your wife that you have the palate of an 8-year-old. Is that confirmed or denied?
From the kids section, but it's all.
Surprised it's not chicken nuggets.
It would be. It would have been. They don't have chicken nuggets.
Oh, damn.
Thank you very much. Can you close that door? Thank you. So, but when I look at going in on the road, like I think the imperative thing, and you guys tell me if I'm wrong, they got to get a split in Toronto. Like, I think that's the important part. And I think the first game is imperative too on a lot of different fronts because you play the underdog card and you win the first game. How does things shrink up? Like, how does the pressure, adjust? That market, Toronto's market gets very loud. And to me, if Ottawa somehow wins that first game, I say somehow, but goes in and wins it, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, they are a good team. Oh, they are like, and that's where I think you can draw off of that is go, we got nothing to lose. Let's play loose and driving here. Thing is though, I just, my whole thing is I'd like the Sens to go, we'll play the underdog card, but we know we're a damn good team. And I think that's where the factor comes in.
Yeah, and I want to jump in here, Noodles, because I'm fascinated to get your opinion on this. And you talked about game one here. Typically, my opinion of game one of a playoff series is it doesn't really mean that much. Like, someone's going to win that game, and then whoever wins that game, then now the dynamics of the series have started. One team's up one, and one team's trailing, and now you've got a dynamic shift. But for this series, I've emphasized game one massively for the Ottawa Senators. And as a goalie, I want to get your opinion on this. My X factor, my number one thing, comes down to the goaltending in this series. You mentioned it. Linus Ullmark, Stolarz, very comparable numbers, both having good seasons. But for me, it's kind of like in football where you say, if you got two quarterbacks, you don't have one. Well, the Toronto Maple Leafs have a tandem, and they're probably going to start Stolarz. That's the guy that's been hot lately, and he's been the better of the two. But with the Ottawa Senators, there is zero competition, questions, any sort of doubt that Linus Ullmark is your number one guy, and he's going to start every single game. Whereas the Toronto Maple Leafs, and we've seen it in the past, playoff teams with tandems, like let's say Ottawa goes in and is able to beat Stolarz, and maybe Stolarz doesn't have the best night. You know, the first question the media is going to ask Berube when they lose, if they lose that game, is, all right, who are you starting next game? What's going on with the goaltending? And then it just shatters everything in the locker room, the fan base, the media goes crazy. Like, that's a big reason, in my opinion, why Linus Ullmark hasn't been able to thrive in the playoffs, because he's been in a tandem situation with Swayman, and you end up playing those mind games. The goalies don't know who's starting. You let a bad goal in, you're like, oh, now I'm not going to play the rest of the series, and it just gets out of control. So, Noodles, how much of an impact does that have where one team has a clear number one and then the other team has two, a 1A, a 1B situation?
It does have a massive impact, and you're right, using that the football analogy of having two quarterbacks, that 1 and 1A. You don't really have a one quarterback, because you're just looking at if one guy struggles, you had to go to the other guy, and you're always second guessing it. I've always believed that you have to have one guy and run with it regardless. Now, I don't know what they're going to do in Toronto. Craig Berube had an interesting comment a couple of weeks ago when they asked about it. And he said, well, I've never had a tandem going to the playoffs. I've always just had one guy. So he might just stick with it and say, hey, I don't want any of this nonsense. That guy is playing. But what you need to do is force the hand, force the noise, because you're right. Like, Joseph Woll's a good young goaltender, and he's played games in the playoffs. So if Stolarz doesn't have his stuff, then the conversation goes, hey, why aren't you guys playing this guy? It gets noisy. So what the Sens have to do is force that conversation. Well, how do you force that conversation? You score goals on the goalie that you're trying to run out of the net. You get traffic in front of them. You throw pucks from all different angles. And to me, that's the biggest thing with Ottawa is, I look at a guy like Stützle, and I've been impressed with his games, recently, because he's shooting the puck more. And I've said it on the broadcast a few times where, I think he's a pass-first guy, which Draisaitl is the same way. Draisaitl's leading the league in goals, but he'll have a breakaway, and he's still looking to see if he's got an option. I'd love to see Timmy, who has a really good quick release, deceptive release, shoot that puck, so that if I'm a goaltender in the net going, man, this guy's got a quick release. And then if he looks me off and creates deception and throws it to the back door for somebody, that's like, I look at some of the best goal scorers in the league. You don't know what they're thinking. That's, as a goaltender, that's the hardest guy to defend. If I'm, if a guy like Draisaitl and McDavid are coming down on a break or 2-on-1, I'm thinking Draisaitl wants to pass it to him every time and vice versa. Like, those guys are pass first guys. What you need to do is go, I got a guy, and I'll give a bad example, but like, I think David Perron would shoot. Like, if he's on a 3-on-0, I still think he'd shoot. He's got that shooter's mentality. He wants it, which I love. And you respect that. So I think there is some bandwidth there when it comes back to the goaltenders is if you can force that scenario, then all of a sudden it creates doubt. And to your point, Brandon, it creates more where it's like, okay, why do we go with this guy? And it's a weird dynamic, because you could say, You can have an off night but still win, or you can have a great night and still lose. And it creates this like, okay, well, why did you make that decision? Because you guys lost. Well, wait, maybe you lost in triple overtime, 1-0. What do you do? That's not going to happen in Ottawa. It's just make sure Linus is healthy to go to the next game. So it is a great debate, and it could be a pressure point, or it will be a pressure point at some point during the series. If Ottawa gets game 1 or game 2 or game 3, something like that, it's like, okay, what do you do? Who's starting? That will be a question from the media for Craig Berube.
Well, the adjustments are going to be so fun to watch. One thing we know is that Travis Green wants Shane Pinto's line, Jake Sanderson and Artem Zub out there against Austin Matthews at all times. But what about from the other perspective, Noodles? Who do you think the Toronto Maple Leafs are going to try to match up against Tim Stützle's line with Tkachuk and Giroux?
Well, I think it'll start. They're going to want McCabe and Tanev if McCabe is healthy, right? Like that's been a good shutdown tandem for them. Chris Tanev he's an elite defender, and he blocks a lot of shots. So I think that's the other, pivoting quickly offensively. Guys have to make sure to get their shots through, because that D likes to block a lot of shots or tries to clog the front of the net. So I think that shutdown tandem, if you're going to go Riley, Carlo, McCabe, and Tanev, and then into Oliver Ekman-Larsson and Benoit or Myers or some form of that. I see people saying Hakanpää. I don't think that's the case right now. Might be, you never know. But that's they're trying to have some health between McCabe and Oliver Ekman-Larsson, which both of them haven't played here down the stretch because they're nursing injuries. So that's the other thing. If I'm, the Toronto Maple Leafs, I look at that defensive core. I think they're veterans. I think they're solid defensively. Not a lot of them are, super offensive. And you have to, I think you defend in the offensive zone by making life very tough on them, being physical, so that they can't spring those forwards with speed through the neutral zone and taking away lanes, that type of stuff. And I think that's where teams have had success against the Toronto Maple Leafs, is you make them play in their own zone. And how you make them play in their own zone is applying pressure, winning loose board battles, and making that D either handle the puck or try and make those passes. So it'll be interesting to see, as you mentioned, in-game adjustments throughout the series. But I think it would, if they're healthy over there, I think they would probably want to start McCabe and Tanev against the top line of the Senators.
Final question for me here, Noodles, and it's always awesome having you on the show, so we appreciate your time, especially someone in your position, like you mentioned, Toronto radio and covering Ottawa Senators game. You have a unique perspective. I think it's fair to say that nobody really expects this series. I don't think anyone expects this series to be a sweep either way. Even I would say 5 games is probably not going to happen. So let's assume it goes to 6 or 7 games. Who do you think ends up gaining an advantage the longer the series goes? Like, do you think the Sens will gain an advantage by wearing them down with that physicality like you talk about? Or do the Leafs end up gaining an advantage because they're like, hey, we've been to game 6s and 7s every single time we're in the playoffs pretty much. We think we know how to handle this. Like, where do you give that edge once it comes to the end of the series?
I'm going to say the edge goes to the Sens the longer this goes, because the louder it'll get. Because you just mentioned, the Leafs have been in game 6, game 7s, all of that type of stuff. Well, it's been rare that they've been able to get through, right? So you can imagine how noisy that will be. However it arrives, if you're at a game 6 or 7 and going, okay, are they going to get through? There will be a bunch of speculation. You're right. And the Leafs can say, we've been in this scenario before, but we haven't, we punched through once in game 6 against Tampa a couple of years ago in overtime. But outside of that, it's been game 7s, and they've come back on the short side. So to me, I think anything longer, it favors the Sens as well, because this is their first kick at the cat. So what they're doing is, or kick at the can, I should say, not at the cat. You don't want to kick cats, but you know what I mean. This is the first kick at it, where it's like the longer it gets into the series, the more comfortable they become and go, okay, this is what it's like. This is what it's like here. This is how it's going to play out. Like, to me, I think as you're gaining experience on the job, you're able to settle in and just play your game. I think that's the biggest challenge for the Sens is if they can get to their game plan as quick as possible, then you shake through the nerves, you shake through everything else, and you're like, oh, the puck's still the same size, the rink's still the same size, the boards are here. Like nothing changes. Yes, the temperature's higher, it's louder, there's a bigger spotlight, but the game's still the same. And I think that's where guys like Amadio, Perron, Nick Cousins, Nick Jensen, Claude Giroux, that have been in the playoffs and seen playoff games go, guys, like if they're in a game 5 or game 6 going, yeah, this is what it looks like. Let's have some fun here. Like to me, instead of, hey, we're tight, we can't make a mistake. You gotta, like, I think you are going to see some apprehension or maybe some nerves early on where it's like, okay, this is, what does this look like? What does this feel like? Where now if you're 4, 5, 6, 7 games in, you're like, we know what this feels like. We're just trying to win a game here. Like this is what we need to do. So I think, it's a long form answer, but I think it favors the Sens the longer it goes because it applies pressure to the team that believes, the other side that believes that they should have wrapped this up, or, the pressure gets louder and certainly that market will get louder.
Cannot wait for game 1 Sunday night. Noodles, final question for me. We appreciate you so much for doing this. Give me your X factor on both sides. Who has the highest leverage point in winning or losing this series outside of goaltenders?
Okay, so the X factor for me, it's going to be somebody that I don't, but it's Matthew Knies for the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think he's a big body that they kind of haven't had a guy like that. They tried to trade for guys like that in the off season or at the deadline. Sorry, you had Tyler Bertuzzi, you had Nick Foligno, but they've got, a younger version of those guys. So I think he's an X factor that kind of, he's a unique player. And I'll slide right on the other side and I go Brady Tkachuk, because I think Brady Tkachuk is a better Matthew Knies in essence. Now Knies is still 23 and coming, but I look at Brady. Brady fights more. Brady's more physical. Brady's had, more success scoring goals, that type of stuff. But I think he's a physical beast that they don't really have an answer for. Like the Toronto Maple Leafs, I don't think they have guys who will fight Brady if Brady wants to fight. But I don't think they have somebody who can play like that in the top 3, top 6. That's the difference. And obviously I could do the lazy thing and just go the goalies, because the goalies are always the X factor. But I look at it, and I'm going to give you one more. Let's do Shane Pinto, because I think Shane Pinto is uniquely qualified to do everything. He kills penalties. He can be a power play guy, 5-on-5. He needs to be a shutdown centerman. He's a big body. He skates well. And when you look down the middle of the ice, the Toronto Maple Leafs will have Matthews, Tavares. And then, now it slides into, well, is Domi going to be over there? Is Scott Lawton? Now you start to look at guys who aren't really locked into that position. That's where Pinto could maybe try and win a matchup here or there, especially on home ice. So I think he's an X factor, a critical one.
I agree with you. Are you going to give us a prediction or no?
You know what? I've been trying to come up with a number. I will predict this. This isn't going to be a short series. The more you talk about it, I think regardless, it's a 6 or 7 game series. And I've said all along, there's going to be a surprise in the first round. I don't know if this would be a massive surprise for Ottawa.
Yeah, we're huge underdogs, Noodles. Come on, huge underdogs.
Yeah, but I'm looking at I think LA is a hell of a team and going to give Edmonton all they can handle, right? Yep. I look at St. Louis and Winnipeg, and I go, St. Louis isn't going to roll over. I think you're going to see a team that may not be expected to win. I don't know what that's going to look like. Maybe it's Montreal, Washington. I don't know.
No.
Trying to hold off on predictions because what bothers me is when I predict something, I feel like I've got skin in that game and I want that to happen. I want to be wrong, put it that way. So I don't know. How about I predict this? This goes 7.
Okay. And if you've been paying attention, Noodle said the longer the series goes, the more it favors Ottawa.
There you go.
Awesome. Well, Noodles, we appreciate the hell out of you, man. You are not only uniquely qualified, but you are also in a record that the Senators set. Pretty cool to see that. 3 shutouts by 3 goalies in a single season. It's only been done 3 times. This year's Ottawa Senators, the 2014 LA Kings, and your 2004 Calgary Flames that made it to the Stanley Cup Finals, and the LA Kings won the Cup. So you do the math on that one.
Never know. And you never know. But I didn't even know that stat until John Perlberg brought that up on the
Girls,
podcast. Like,
such a beauty.
He is a beauty. But that was great.
We got to have a couple cold ones with him in Minnesota last year after the game.
Yeah, he's a beauty for sure. The Perlberg. He's
great guy.
He's awesome for the broadcast. I love him. I use him so much, or he contributes so much to our broadcast. Like it's amazing because a lot of those stats and those boards and everything, they're we get a missive for the game, and Pearly we call them Pearly's wisdoms. So it's nuggets of wisdom. So he's all over those broadcasts. He helps everybody look good on air.
Well, you deserve as many chicken nuggets as your heart desires. We appreciate all your hard work on Ottawa Senators broadcast this year, and we always look forward to having you on the show, Noodles. So thanks for doing this.
All right. Thanks for having me, guys. We'll chat soon.
All right, Pillsy, great conversation with Noodles. Love having him as a friend of the show, and that room service made me pretty hungry. Any final thoughts on today's show?
I'm hungry for a battle, Ross. I'm hungry for a war. The Battle of Ontario, for the first time in 20 years, is back in the playoffs. It's a beautiful thing. Make sure you got the schedule of all the games. Cancel your plans. Tell your family this is what you're focused on from this time to this time. Bring your Sens fans all together. Go to the GLEBE Central Pub. Be prepared for the playoffs. You don't get it all the time. We got it now. The next time you will see us, the next time you will see, well, actually, you'll see us before. You'll see us before. But the next time you will see the Ottawa Senators on the ice, it's playoffs, Battle of Ontario. Woo!
And it's great that Brady Tkachuk confirmed that he is all good precautionarily why he left the game last night. Says he wasn't going to play much more anyway, so they thought it would be safer to get them ready for the Stanley Cup playoffs. Now, I just want to give a little stick taps for my final thoughts to Tim Stützle playing 82 games for the first time in his 5-year career. And he had a great game at that. What a way to end the game, having that beautiful rush goal. Made no mistake, put the puck in the back of the net. 3 points for Timmy Superstar. And let's see what he's got for an encore. Yes, we want more in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So we will be back tomorrow with a full preview with our friends over at Locked On Toronto Maple Leafs. For today, we say goodbye. Be a friend, tell a friend about Locked On Senators. We appreciate you for making us your first listen each and every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. The everydayers, the citizens out there, you know how much we appreciate you. Let's have fun on this ride together. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been another edition of the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.